Welcome to EP Daily. Today on the show, from the heart of downtown Toronto, we're talking about the Canadian Video Game Awards in the rundown.
And then Marissa has a green thumb with Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 2.
And then Jose takes a walk on the wild side with the latest Ghost Recon game. Also coming up, we pop Eternal Champions into the Sega Genesis for a classic cartridge review. We take a look back at the early days of Microsoft's Kinect and much more today on EP Daily. Brought to you by EB Games. I'm your host, Victor Lucas, bringing you the latest in everything cool every single day. And in case you haven't heard, we are transitioning off of our partner broadcast stations with City and G4 Canada at the end of the year. So if you like what we do and you want to support us, please go to our YouTube page, like, and subscribe to our content. That's at youtube.com/EPNTV. Now here's your rundown. The 6th Annual Canadian Video Game Awards, hosted by the EP team, honoring the very best in Canadian-made games, recently took place in Toronto. Ubisoft Quebec's Assassin's Creed Syndicate was the biggest winner, taking home 5 awards, including Game of the Year. The Fans' Choice Award for the best Canadian-made game, voted by you, was the indie title N++ from Toronto-based MetaNet Software, with Vancouver's Clay Entertainment taking home 3 wins for Don't Starve and Invisible, Inc. Here to help me discuss the 6th Annual Canadian Video Game Awards is my pal and yours, Jose Don Fubar Sanchez. Did you have a good time, buddy?
I had a great time. It was my first time at the Canadian Video Game Awards.
Yes.
You guys never invited me before.
We made
Finally,
you an honorary Canadian for the CVAs this year.
I got to become a Canadian. I got to experience the Canadian Video Game Awards. And you know, there's tons of award shows out there that promote so many other video games are out there. But it's good to see the Canadian crowd and the Canadian developers and how excited they are when their games get announced and when their games win.
That was the idea from the beginning. Full disclosure, I'm the co-founder of the awards, and I, sort of proposed the idea to put the spotlight on these guys, these teams that, make some of the best stuff in the world, but most of the folks in the world don't really understand how much stuff gets made out of this country. A little too much focus on Assassin's Creed Syndicate this year.
I mean, and it's the newest of all the titles that were on the list of a lot of these games. So, but obviously it's the newest, it's the greatest, man. That's what people remember. Even when we do the Game of the Years outside of just the Canadian Video Game Awards, it's usually the games that come out later in the year that get all the recognition. And the same goes for the CVAs. Yeah,
definitely. And, it is still the big budget games pitted against some of the indie stuff out there. It's interesting to see companies like Clay and MetaNet sort of, percolate to the top. I think that's great. We need more of that. And, I really want to challenge the other Canadian developers out there to really come at Ubisoft, because they always have this...
throwing down the gauntlet.
They always have so many people up on stage during these events picking up awards for multiple titles. And I would love to see, more games... AAA or not, kind of come at, and challenge some of these top dogs, And that's not taking anything away from Ubisoft games. They're great.
Well, and it's tough because when you have multiple Assassin's Creed games on the list, that's how they do it. Yeah. They're like, if we keep putting out Assassin's Creed games in a year with different teams, we've got a chance of winning these awards.
And Far Cry is so awesome as well. Far Cry 4 was in there. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was definitely a very cool night. And, one of the great things about it is we got to kind of celebrate our 25 seasons on television, and we got to meet people that were out there to meet us and to watch us do the hosting and stuff. And and Scott and Marissa and Steve Tilley and Sophia Tong joined us up on stage. It was a really fun night.
I mean, it's always a really fun night.
Yeah.
We get to hang out together. I mean, I think it's really nice about the CVAs is that you actually give awards to everybody. You guys don't just, it's not just the winners. That's not polite.
That's not yours, buddy. No, you don't get to keep that award.
So I'll just take their word for them, and maybe they'll see it. Maybe they won't.
Right now, we've got to go to probably an award winner from Marissa Roberto. Here's Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 2.
Any chance I get to talk about Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare, I will take it and run with it. Let's talk about Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 2. I know we talked about this at E3. I talked to your coworker, actually, it wasn't you. So, fresh face. Let's talk about this fresh game. What's new in Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 2?
So we recently just introduced 3 new playable plant classes. We've got Citron, who is a bounty hunter orange from the future. We've got Korn, who was actually fighting overseas when Garden Warfare 1 took place, so he's come back, and he's more of a run-and-gun FPS type of character, very similar to the Soldier Zombie. And then last we have Rose. Now Rose is a mystical seer from the past, and she uses magical arts to turn zombies into goats and do other crazy spells.
I love how you have a whole backstory here for Korn, like he was fighting overseas, and that's why he's joining the team. What is new, and what can we talk about that's been new since E3, though? Is this just it, just the plant types that we're learning about?
No, so my favorite feature is called the Backyard Battleground. Now what we've done is we've removed the entire front-end menu. So the moment you boot the game, you're going to be launched right into the universe of Plants vs. Zombies. You're really in a backyard. And this is not an ordinary backyard. The plants have a base, and the zombies have a base. And basically, it is like a portal to all of your experiences, whether you want to play solo play, cooperatively with friends, or jump in a competitive multiplayer. The backyard is basically your launching point. But it's not just a portal, it's a playground. It's a place where you can actually play gameplay. You can do missions for Crazy Dave and Dr. Zomboss. You can invite up to 3 friends to join you cooperatively or competitively. So if you're playing a plant and you want to join the zombie side, then you and your friends can actually start having a battle right in our front end. We pride ourselves on listening to our fans and working with our fans, so we're actively involved in Twitter. We talk to them on forums, on message boards. We really get to the root of what do they love about the game, what would they change about the game, and make sure that we're making a game that fans want to play. In addition to that, we're offering free DLC for all of our fans as well, so we're going to continue giving them free content updates well after launch. In addition to that, they've told us that, they were very attached to their characters that they collected in Garden Warfare 1, so we're giving them the ability to import those characters directly into Garden Warfare 2 and just continue enjoying the experience.
Great job, Marissa. Looks like 2016 is going to be your year.
And stick around. We've got a classic cartridge review of Eternal Champions coming up after the break.
This episode of EP Daily is brought to you by Collective Minds, the makers of the PS4 Cool and Charge stand and the Xbox One Media Hub, available at EB Games.
It is useless to resist. Don't let yourself be destroyed as Obi-Wan did.
I'm Bruce McLean, senior producer on Star Wars The Old Republic. I grew up in the Bahamas, and we were lucky enough to get Star Wars there when it came out. And I still remember Empire Strikes Back, when it was released on the theater, being so excited about going to see the next Star Wars movie. And we were pulling up to the theater, and someone had arranged the letters on the sign to say, Vader is Luke's father.
Search your feelings. You know it to be true.
It was a shocking moment, and my parents were upset, and I wasn't sure what it meant, but I still remember that to this day. It was a horrible spoiler, and whoever did that, I'm gonna find you.
It is so cool that John McClane's brother Bruce is as huge a Star Wars fan as I am.
Okay, all right, we are all Star Wars fans. You cannot take ownership of that. But listen, we've got to go to a classic cartridge review now. It is time for Eternal Champions. In today's classic cartridge segment, we have a little game called Eternal Champions. Now, when I tweeted about this game and I Instagrammed it, everyone freaked out.
Yeah.
Freaked out about this game because they were so excited that we were going to review it. And I gotta say, that got the bar pretty high for me. And then I jumped into the game and realized maybe it wasn't so great.
A little bit of hubris with Eternal in the title of this game, because this was a Sega game that came out for the Genesis back in 1993. And Sega was doing something pretty innovative here. They wanted to build a fighting game that would compete with the likes of Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter, but it wasn't based on an arcade game. It was a purely and strictly a home console release.
Yeah.
And it was pretty good in that measure, but it just couldn't stack up to the juggernauts of Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat. Those are better developed titles than this game.
Well, those are huge games, and also they developed a reputation for themselves by being in the arcades, and everyone was playing these games in the arcades. So when you're jumping into a brand new, fresh game on your console, I guess you're expecting something more, and you don't really get that with this one, especially now that I've played so many amazing fighting games. Going back to something like this is pretty... Well, I don't want to say devastating, that's too harsh of a word, because there are some elements here that are okay.
Well, the thing that I wanted to do with this segment was to go back and see how much of this stuff kind of holds up, and it is amazing, even though the animation is a little shoddy and, the fighting mechanics are a little tough. I mean, it's one of those games where it doesn't let up right from the beginning. You're getting beat in the first match against the first opponent that you fight.
I was getting beat in the tutorial section.
Yeah,
I was getting my ass handed to me.
Yeah, it doesn't flow. It doesn't really sort of elegantly introduce introduce you into the mechanics at all, but it does have some pretty good fundamentals. And if you've got Street Fighter cred, if you've got Mortal Kombat kind of skills, if you're a fighting game guru, you're going to have some fun, I think, going through this one, because it has some pretty interesting characters. They're all kind of like superheroes that have been thrown from different time periods. You actually can play as a caveman in this game with a big club. You can use the club like a baseball bat, which is kind of hilarious.
But that's what I love about this game, is the actual compelling stories behind each character, because they all have something very unique about them, which is interesting. And there's no bad or evil character.
Yeah.
That's another really interesting thing. It's like, why are they fighting each other then if they're not bad? No one is evil. It doesn't really play into their stories, but there's this eternal champion that's brought them all together to do good in the world.
Yeah, and to you see who is the toughest of them all kind of thing. I liked Larson. He reminded me a little bit of the Shadow.
Right.
You know, he's kind of like this gothic thief that has a grappling hook and can clamber along on the ceiling, then jump down and hit everybody.
Yeah, I mean, Jenna Max is kind of cool. She used to be in the circus. I mean, I love their backstory. She's from 1989, and I mean, I just love that these stories are sussed out with the characters. But again, just playing the game, it's not exciting. Even, I mean, they have these finishing moves in there as well that you just feel like they ripped off in Mortal Kombat.
They're called overkills, and they are incredibly gruesome and violent, and it feels a little incongruous because this is almost Comic Zone kind of caliber comic book art for a lot of these characters, and you know, there are characters that look like they were taken or lifted or borrowed right from DC or Marvel's comic books.
Sure.
They're not. They're all created expressly for this title, but then they have these just disgusting, you know, killer finishing moves at the end of everything, which is kind of crazy.
And then some of them are supposed to be allies in the end, so why would you do that to your ally? It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense, but a lot of fighting games don't. This is one of those titles. I liked playing it. I did like re-experiencing it. I don't think that this is one that you have to rush out and collect, and you can find it in a myriad of different ways. What are you going to give Eternal Champions?
I'm sorry, it's getting a 5.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 5.5.
I know I loved me some Eternal Champions back in the day. I mean, it had level fatalities. Games didn't do that.
All right, just relax for a second. We've got to go down to our 25 seasons in 25 days. That is right. We are now at season 19. Holy crap. This is Vic interviewing Phil Spencer about Project Natal. So this is actually before it became Kinect.
Before it was called Kinect.
Tell us, you know, what is in store? What do Xbox 360 fans have to look forward to?
In the studios, our real focus right now is on Natal and live. You saw things like the 1 versus 100 beta that's been tremendously successful. Great to see that live and free to play, people coming online, people winning prizes. It's great. We had Joyride out there from our friends in Canada, our new addition to Microsoft Game Studios in Big Park. Joyride's a free-to-play game, something new for us in the console space. Hey, let's put something out there that anybody can play, really create community. And then we hit with Natal. And Natal for us has been something that's been in the works for years, the technology behind that. And when our content creators like Kudo and Peter Molyneux really got their hands on this technology in a usable form, you start to see the magic.
Tell us how Natal is, you know, positioned differently with what Sony's doing with their wand system. I don't know if they have a real name for it yet, and what Wii Motion Plus is doing for the Wii.
Yeah, for us, the big focus was really you as the controller. The first demo we did, we had a lady who's actually on the development team, Abby Lynn, come out and act like a crazy person, hit a bunch of balls. You don't have to teach anybody to play that game, right? Ricochet, you stand in front of it, you hit a ball, you do the natural thing that you would do in real life. The painting that Darren showed, it's not really a game, it's more of a creation, a very creative, just hanging out with other people. We call it Paint Party.
Do you guys see value in having an object, a physical object? I mean, I could see gameplay-wise that it would make it a little bit easier to control a sword if I actually physically had a sword. Can you do that with Natal even? Could you have some?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There's nothing keeping us from putting accessories in people's hands. Yeah. And I think you're actually going to see some experience where the things that are in people's hands might even be a controller, right? Yeah. I don't see this as the end of the controller. Right. You might have some experiences where you're voice command, right? Because you don't forget that part of Natal, it's not just the camera, right? We actually have an RGB camera in there so we can see you in color, and we also have an array mic so we can listen to you and we know where you are in the room because of the array mic. And you can think about all of this technology come to play. I might have a controller in my hand, I could have a sword in my hand. Accessories could definitely be part of it.
Very cool. Phil, always a pleasure talking with you.
Yeah, good job.
Everything going on at Xbox 360, including Facebook and Twitter, which we didn't even talk about.
Yeah.
Great year for you guys.
Thanks a lot, I appreciate that.
Well, I'm so glad they decided to change the name to Kinect because Natal would have never lasted.
Right, the Kinect really took off there. Don't go anywhere because after the break, Jose is leaving Toronto for where?
The Wildlands.
Oh.
This episode of EP Daily is brought to you by Collective Minds, the makers of the PS4 Cool and Charge stand and the Xbox One Media Hub, available at EB Games.
Welcome back to EP Daily. I am here with my co-host, Marissa Roberto, who has never looked hotter than she does today.
Thanks, Scott. And we're going to Jose, who's got an interview with Ghost Recon Wildlands.
Thanks, Marissa.
Got eyes on White Hat.
There is a new Ghost Recon on the horizon. This is Ghost Recon Wildlands. Now, this game has got a huge scope attached to it. Tell me a little bit about creating the world for Wildlands.
So Ghost Recon Wildlands is a 4-player co-op open world military shooter set in Bolivia. It's set in the near future, 4 years from now, where the ghosts have been dropped behind enemy lines to cause chaos and try to disrupt the alliance between the Santa Blanca drug cartel and the local corrupt government.
Why set the game 4 years ahead of now? Can you guys predict the future? Is that some kind of ability that you guys at Ubisoft have that you aren't sharing with the rest of the world?
You know, I mean, we are storytellers, so this is our job, and if you look at every piece of fiction, there's the idea of inventing stories, and also it's a Tom Clancy game, and we can say that Tom Clancy was the king of the what-ifs. So what we can say is we do a Tom Clancy Ghost Recon game, what if something happened? I think it makes sense. However, the key thing to have in mind is we're always obsessed about game design, and at the core of what we were doing, there was the idea of how to go further in the tactical elements of Ghost Recon as a franchise.
With the 4 years in advance, it's not that necessarily we're trying to predict the future, but it gives us a little bit of leeway to play with some of the tech and offer the players some new choices that aren't close to reality, but they're not 100% based in reality.
On the tactical, what is interesting is just by going open world, all of a sudden, for somebody who has worked on GRO or GRFS, we have so many tools available. You can choose your weapon, but also your vehicles. You can choose the time of the day. You can choose the location. So all those things made us think that we needed less tech tools than we used to do. GRFS was further away in the future, and so we said, okay, why not 4 years from now?
Target down. Drop them.
There's open world games out there, but this is freaking huge open world game. And you mentioned the day-night elements. How is that going to play into the factor of the missions that we're going to be going on? Whether, you know, something's across the map, and do we want to do it during the day? Do we want to do it during the night? Is that going to change the gameplay at all?
Absolutely, absolutely. So you mentioned about the massive open world. It's absolutely huge. We've got, I think it's 9 regions, each with their own ecosystems, and those things are offering different types of gameplay, different types of approach for the players. So we have jungle, very dense, close quarters combat. We've got swamplands. We've got huge mountainsides. So the players got to make choice about how they approach, what vehicles they use, how they're going to get the job done, and it's really about player choice. That's what it comes down to. But in terms of the day-night, the rain, the weather effects, all of this, for sure it has extra effects as well as the environment type, as well as what's going on and how the game is reacting to the player.
And being that the world is as big as it is, and you mentioned that it's also a 4-player co-op game, is this going to be a game where staying together as a team unit is essential, or is it going to be something where all of us can kind of just go on our own separate ways and do our own things if we want to be it and just prove how badass we are on our own?
I would say it's more about that, it's not necessarily essential, it's more that it makes sense. When these guys are elite soldiers and when they get dropped behind enemy lines, they stick together. It makes sense. They're going to be stronger together.
And the enemies are quite hardcore, so usually, I mean,
it's going to be pretty tough.
They will not send just one guy. If they send 4 guys, is that you need to have enough people to be fighting against the enemy. So I would say the key thing in terms of gameplay is how do you want to play it. If you really want to go lone wolf and all the guys you're playing with are very strong, then you'll try to do it. But probably there's a limit because, again, we try to be in the realm of plausibility. At one stage, you'll be always playing between being together and separated. A little bit like in the demo, I guess you were able to see. And that's kind of what we're going to see, that sometimes together, sometimes separated, but never too far. You're always watching your back.
We got to take a quick break for lots of reasons, but when we come back, we've got the Twitter question of the day after this.
If you want more EP, go to our website, epn.tv, for bonus content and full episodes. We're also on Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back to EP Daily, coming to you from Yonge and Dundas Square in Toronto, Ontario. Very exciting
Very
stuff, Scott Jones.
sexy.
It's now time for the Twitter question of the day. This one comes from God for Mayor. He says, do you guys have a blooper reel you could share with us before the end of 2015? Great question.
Very interesting. You know, I feel like looking back at the CVAs, the whole thing was kind of a blooper reel. Some things went right, some things went wrong, just like life itself.
That's so true.
I know,
that is
right?
very
Deep
true.
thought of the day.
Well, we did show, we showed that awesome reel of the 25 years
We
of
did.
EP. at
You
the
looked
CVAs,
great at it, by
but-
the way.
Oh, thank you.
Oh,
Thanks so much.
thank you, Jose Sanchez.
Yeah, right.
Oh, wait a
but we
second,
don't
you're not
have
Jose.
we don't have a year-end blooper reel
No, we
in the
don't,
works
not
right
this
now.
year.
That
Yeah.
would be cool though. But we will have that reel up on the
CVA's
EPN.tv.
reel.
Yeah, the YouTube site. So you can check it out there. We also have a huge playlist of all the things we do here at EP. You can check out there as well. So subscribe and like.
And that's it for today's show, but tune in tomorrow and you'll get to see this. I can't believe it either. See you then, guys.
EP would like to thank its sponsors, Nintendo, Xbox. EP's mobile coverage is brought to you by Gameloft, makers of Asphalt 8 Airborne, which you can play on your Android or iOS device for free right now.
Every year, like clockwork, here's RoboCop.
Samurai sword to the... Oh! No, wait! No.
He's half man, half box. He's box man.
Captain Irrational, here comes that big walking ice cube. We gotta take care of him.
Let's take out the trash.
Get a load of this guy. He came dressed as Kevin Bacon. Nice try, buddy.
No, I actually am Kevin Bacon.
Animal Crossing Happy Home Designer.
Batman is not in this. I
know.
checked and he's
Batman
not in.
is not
Yeah.
a character yet.
Listen to this.